You got it. That's so true. Oh, so true. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. and ask if there's a disclosure of interest. As there is none, we have a resolution moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended with the following additions. 11G, an email from Jolene Turaki for the Oliver Papoonj Seniors Christmas Party and the use of the Morella Community Hall. And that is, I believe, on December the 6th. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The first item we have on deputations today is Maddie Frum for the Municipal Partnerships Representative. She is the Municipal Partnerships Representative for the Food Cycle Science Corporation. She's online. Hi, Maddie.
Hi, everyone.
And I just give the floor to you for your presentation. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to send the request now. Perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm assuming you can all see this. So good morning, Mayor, councilors, members of staff. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Maddie Frum, and I am the Municipal Partnerships Representative at Food Cycle Science, and I'm here to discuss a food waste program for the municipality of Oliver Papoonj. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company based out of Ottawa that's 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions, and we do this by using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. So our in-home food recycler is sold direct to consumers. We sell to businesses, we sell to classrooms through partnerships with a not-for-profit organization, and lastly, we sell to municipalities through our Food Cycler Municipal Solutions Division, which is what I'll be talking about today. So we're currently working with more than 150 Canadian municipalities across the 9 provinces and 2 territories. You can find us in rural and remote areas all the way to highly populated cities. And nearby to you, we have programs in Red Rock, Terrace Bay, and a bit further away in Kenora. The communities that partner with us have the same thing in common. They face challenges with waste management or landfill capacity, and they're looking for ways to try and keep food waste out of their landfill. The problem with food waste is that it's avoidable. It accounts for about half of household waste, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which is really heavy and it freezes in the winter. On top of that, food waste in landfills is responsible for generating the harmful greenhouse gas, methane. All of these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that actually has a very strong municipal impact. So one of the impacts to municipalities is that since food waste makes up such a large portion of the waste stream, it actually causes our landfills to fill up quickly. And as you know, operating a landfill is really costly for a municipality. So we want to try and extend the lifespan of that for as long as possible. The environmental impact is that organic waste in landfills produces the greenhouse gas methane, as I mentioned, and methane is 25 times more harmful than CO2. Putting that into perspective, taking 1 ton of food waste out of the waste stream is the equivalent to taking 1 car off the road for an entire year. So it has a pretty significant impact. And in our communities, putting food waste in the garbage causes odors, which is of course not nice for us, but it's very interesting for animals like bears and raccoons who love to rummage through our trash. So by removing food waste from the garbage, we can eliminate these issues and reduce volumes, which will save the municipality on hauling and disposal fees. It'll save space in your landfill, and it'll save residents on the excess hassle and waste fees. We often get asked, okay, but haven't we solved this already? And yes, there are green bins, which are common in big cities with high population density and the right infrastructure. However, these are really cost prohibitive and operationally challenging to implement for people that are in rural or more remote areas. Also, we've seen across the country that green bins really struggle to get above a 40 to 60% participation rate, meaning that a lot of organics are still just ending up in the landfill, indicating that green bins alone aren't a very good solution. People in your community might try and backyard compost, and we of course think that's an excellent solution. But unfortunately, the problem with backyard composting is it's not feasible for everybody. It's not really a year-round solution, and there's still the concern about bears and other animals getting into it. And then finally, the easiest solution would be to just do what we're doing and throw food waste into the landfill, but the long-term impacts are costly to the environment. So we've proposed a different way to manage food waste. With the Food Cycler, we make food waste easy to deal with and right in the home. So essentially, we've built a small kitchen appliance. It's roughly the same size as an air fryer or a bread machine. straightforward to use. You put your food waste into the machine, you push a button, and in only a matter of hours, you are left with a dry, sterile, odorless, and nutrient-rich soil amendment. The food cycler can handle all types of food waste, and that can include meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some bones, which is really great because these are foods that are typically not able to be put into a backyard compost or even the green bin sometimes. The machine can be used anywhere with a plug. Most people will keep it in their kitchen, but you could put it in your basement or you could put it in a heated garage if you have one. On average, it'll process 1 to 3 kilograms of food waste per cycle, with each cycle taking 4 to 8 hours to complete and using 1 kilowatt hour of power, which would be the equivalent to having a computer plugged in at the same amount of time, or it's roughly 11 cents. And then the soil amendment you're left with has many beneficial uses. So here's a look at the two units that we would use for your municipality. The difference between these two just comes down to capacity and unit size. So the Eco 3 holds 3.5 liters of food waste and was designed for smaller families or spaces like apartments and condos. And the Eco 5 holds 5 liters of food waste and was recommended for larger households or those who just produce more food waste. Both machines are equipped with a refillable carbon filter to eliminate any smells that occur during the process, but it's important to note that you don't actually need the carbon filter in your machine for the machine to work properly. The sole purpose is just to eliminate smells. So if you're storing this someplace where you're not going to notice those smells, by all means, don't worry about it and just use your food cycler without it. I like to show this image because it's a really good depiction in the reduction in volume you see when you run your food cycler. So in one cycle, a full bucket of food waste will reduce in volume up to 90%, leaving you with about 100 grams of soil amendment. There's nothing like opening up your food cycler after its cycle and seeing what you're left with. It's pretty remarkable. So the soil amendment created during the process is completely dry and sterile, and it has many beneficial uses. So most people will use it in their garden soil as a fertilizer, but you could also add it to a backyard composter. If you had a leaf and yard waste system, it could be integrated into that. We've had individuals pelletize it and use it as a home heating alternative. Then you could drop it off at a compost site if that was available, or you could do a bit of a sharing program where it's dropped off at a local farm or community garden. And of course, if there were green bins, you could by all means add it to that. So from an environmental standpoint, over its lifetime, the food cycler is a net negative carbon solution. And what that means, it's just like planting trees or using solar panels. When you use your food cycler to avoid bringing food waste to a landfill, you actually avoid more greenhouse gases than you create in that process. The same can't be said for other municipal operations, such as waste facilities or waste and recycling collection services, which rely on a large fleet of greenhouse gas emitting vehicles. In addition to the environmental impact, the traditional method of managing waste is a heavily burdened system with unrelenting costs from trucking, labor, and maintenance. The food cycler offers a decentralized approach that avoids the unnecessary additional labor costs. It avoids greenhouse gas emissions from trucking and improper food waste breakdown, and infrastructure costs to the municipality or the residents. The moment that a food cycler enters a home, there is an immediate and impactful food waste diversion taking place. So one thing we've learned from working with municipalities is that residents are really interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these options to the community. With the food cycler, you get to bring something innovative and tangible to your residents. Since food waste accounts for such a large portion of household waste, it's also the single most impactful strategy to achieving any food waste diversion targets. So the results from our municipal pilot projects have been overwhelmingly positive. We're able to achieve a 98% participation rate. We have a user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars, and there's a significant amount of net new waste diversion taking place, approximately 300 kilograms per household per year. After seeing how well the initial pilot program goes, many of the municipalities we've partnered with expand their program to more households in their community. So in Nelson, BC, for example, after running 2 successful pilot programs, they decided to put a food cycler in every home in their city of 11,000 people, which is very exciting. So the pilot program is a typical 12-week project. Residents would purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from you, the municipality. They use the unit, they track the number of cycles per week, and then at the end, all we ask is that they complete a brief survey so we can evaluate the program's success. The results are then presented back to you in a final report or a feasibility study, and then that data can be used to support your future waste management decision making or accompany a recommendation or grant application to expand the program further. And we do offer final report writing and grant writing support as part of the cost of the pilot program. So the funded pilots work based on a subsidy model where Food Cycle Science will provide a discount, reducing the cost by 50%. We then ask that the municipality subsidize the cost further by $100 per household, and then participating residents will choose which model best suits their needs, and they contribute that remaining amount. And keep in mind, after the 12-week pilot program, this unit is theirs to keep and keep using. So here I have some pilot size recommendations. Keeping in mind that our minimum pilot size is 100, I would recommend the 100 household pilot for your community. Since the municipal subsidy is $100 per household, a 100 household pilot would be only $10,000 plus the cost of shipping and taxes. However, this is just a recommendation. We're always open to working with you based on your budget or your needs to determine a pilot size that fits with you. So lastly, here are some reasons that may resonate with you as you consider whether you should pilot with us. First is that you have the opportunity to trial this technology at well below market rates. You will also see immediate and impactful benefits such as waste diversion, lower disposal costs, and reduced greenhouse gas emissions. But overall, you're going to be able to provide your constituents with a low-cost municipal service, all while being a steward for the environment. So I welcome the municipality of Oliver Papunj as a partner in the fight against food waste, as I believe your community is a great fit for the benefits of this program. Today, all I ask is you receive my presentation as information, and should there be any interest in partnering with us on a funded pilot program, that you refer to staff for your report and recommendation. Thank you so much for allowing me to present today. I am prepared to answer any questions you have at this time, and I will also go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Does a member of council have questions? Yes, Councillor Campbell.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Curious, how long have you had these units in operation, and what would expected lifespan of each unit be?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So we've had these units selling retail since 2011. We've been doing the pilot program since 2020. The technology has changed over the years, so now the units that I've recommended are longer lasting and they're better, they're more durable. But the lifespan of them is about 7 to 10 years. But we've built them in a modular way, so if there is a component that breaks down, we're able to fix it. And how that would work in your community is, a resident would reach out to us and say that they have a problem. We would troubleshoot with them and then ultimately figure out a way to get that back so we can fix it. If the unit, is not usable anymore, it's not working, we've fixed it as much as we can, what we would do is partner with an e-waste recycler in your community to make sure that they can take the units and ensure that they don't end up in the landfill and they continue their life that way.
Any other questions? Councillor Viss?
Yeah, one question. I noticed that you gave some indication of three organizations or municipalities, Glengarry and Hornpain and Kenora. Basically, I think what they are is a city type where all of the Papunj is really rural. And rural and city, I think for food waste is a lot of difference. We have animals galore like cats and dogs and stuff that if there's some food scraps left, guess where they go and they take care of that. So I guess my point is a rural municipality is important to have this as a city?
Thank you for your question. Yes, so we've actually found more success with rural municipalities than we have with cities. So that's not to say cities haven't been successful. They have, because they don't have as much land. But it also just comes down to the people in rural areas. So if they aren't using a backyard composter and they're bringing their waste to the landfill, I don't know, they notice a big difference in their in the waste that they're bringing. It's cleaner, it's easier to manage. It's also easier in a backyard composter just to throw it in. It's not freezing and it's not attracting animals. But it comes down to personal preference. So if you're somebody who uses a backyard composter, maybe a food cycler is not going to be a great fit for you. But if you don't and you find it a hassle, I think people in rural communities do notice that it is quite a beneficial tool. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Councillor Peacock?
Good morning, and thank you, Maddie, for your presentation. Just wondering, have you reached out to the school boards and perhaps that would be a good place to start the I'm sure there's lots of waste from lunches from kids, and this would be a perfect learning opportunity as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, so we have been working with school boards. We go through a not-for-profit organization called Eco Schools mainly. But yes, we are open to providing these for schools because it is a great learning tool for children. So it is something that we have on our radar.
Councillor Calvert?
So do you have lots of private companies that ask you about this, or is it mainly just municipals that you deal with? Like, is there a lot of even individuals that contact you over this?
Thank you. Yes, so we do sell retail. So individuals are contacting us and purchasing these food cyclers at the retail price. And we sell internationally as well. So we have a big market in Japan and Korea for these food cyclers. We do have private businesses asking about them. We're in the process of producing a commercial unit that would fit in restaurants. It's not on the market yet, but it's in the works. So yeah, we do have various business streams that are using our process, our food cycler technology, which is really exciting. But municipal is a great solution, and it's a great tool because it can reduce the cost of the food cyclers, because that's really a large barrier to these machines getting into homes. Not everybody can afford them, of course, so the municipal program makes them accessible.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you very much today, Maddie, for coming and giving us this presentation. And we will get a report from our administration in the future in regards to your presentation and this offer, and we will contact you then.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. I hope you have a great rest of your meeting.
You too. Thank you. Next items on the deputations is Elena Cameron. She's president of the Ontario Autism Coalition, and she's here to make a presentation. Yes, please sit there and please push the button to make sure it turns green. Then those that are online can hear better too. Thank you.
How's that? Great. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members, fellow residents of Oliver Papoonj and allies. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Elena Cameron, and I am proud president of the Ontario Autism Coalition, which is a grassroots, nonpartisan political advocacy organization working towards access to timely, scientifically supported and publicly funded services and supports for autistic Ontarians and their families. I'm also a proud resident, lifelong resident of Oliver Papoonj. Today, I'm here not just to advocate for the over 25,000 OAC members across Ontario, but as a mother doing her best to keep her daughter safe. My daughter Fiona is profoundly autistic. She's nonverbal and doesn't understand what danger is. She also wanders. Medically, it's called elopement. This means that she has extreme risk. Fiona doesn't understand danger the way most kids do. She is full of joy, but her inability to recognize risks has been a constant source of worry for my family. Let me share a moment with you that makes my heart race. One summer afternoon, I think it was last summer, Fiona slipped out of the yard faster than any of us in the family could react. She flies low, basically. She ran down the driveway towards the road, directly into the path of a black pickup truck coming north, so down the hill on Hockwell Road. The driver didn't see her until the very last second because of trees. I ran after her, my heart pounding, and I managed to grab her hand just as the truck noticed her and started to slow down. For a moment, time stood still. The truck stopped. We were okay, but I shook and cried as the adrenaline coursed through my body. And I realized in that moment that despite all of our exhaustive efforts, how close that had been. I'm trying everything in my power to keep Fiona safe. I'm doing my due diligence. We've worked tirelessly with therapists at Creative Therapy Associates to the tune of $65,000 last year, which we just secured when Fiona turned 7 because of the delays to the Ontario Autism Program. There are over 50,000 children waitlisted. We've secured a Project Lifesaver FM radio tracker through Lakehead Search and Rescue, which we are learning to wear, but it's clunky. I've invested heavily in safety modifications to our home, but Fiona is getting bigger and faster, and I'm getting older and slower. So no amount of preparation will change the fact that we live on a road where vehicles often speed past without any awareness of how many children are on that road and the vulnerable child who lives in my home. So this is why I'm here today. I'm asking the municipality to help us with an additional layer of safety. I'm asking for the installation of road safety signs indicating the presence of a vulnerable non-verbal child in our community, specifically Hockwell Road. These signs would help alert drivers to exercise caution in the area, knowing that a child like Fiona lives nearby. This is not an extraordinary request. Similar things have been installed in other communities, including here in Northwestern Ontario and Terrace Bay recently. They've been successfully improved road safety for children with special needs. And I think if Terrace Bay can do it, so can Oliver Papoonge. I know this council is capable of meaningful action, and I believe that together we can make this happen. This is an easy, low-cost measure, but it would make the world of difference between a close call and a tragedy. So I've raised this concern in the past. It didn't receive the support I had hoped for. Today, I come to you with a clear and specific ask. I'm willing to work with council and staff, fundraise for these signs, and rally community support if needed. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to protect Fiona. In my capacity as the Ontario Autism Coalition president, I've seen how communities can come together to create safer, more inclusive environments for individuals on the autism spectrum. This isn't just about Fiona. It's about showing the world that Oliver Papoonge is a community that values all residents, especially those most vulnerable. Let's set an example for other municipalities by taking this small but impactful step to improve safety and inclusion. By installing this sign for Fiona, we can send a message that our community cares, that we are proactive, and that we believe every resident has the right to feel safe. I would like to also thank President of Thunder Bay Family Network, Sharon Back, for being here and supporting our family and this endeavor. And thank you for your time and consideration. I hope to have your support in making our community safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions of anyone on council? Councillor Viss?
Yes, I'd like to make one comment, and I hear what you're saying. Yes, of course, anybody wants to protect their children. The problem I have with signs, not that it's a problem to put up a sign, but people don't adhere to signs. We have speed limits on our roads, and you know what? And you know well as I do, they go way past her. And I live on a particular hill, which they've reduced the speed limit to, and you know, I see them taking air. And, you know, and I have great grandchildren living across the road from me, which is very nerve-taking. But what can we do with that? People are not adhering to signs. How can we help you? I really don't know. I wish I had an answer for you, but I hear what you're saying because they get running. You're not going to catch up to them. You're right, because we get older and they get younger, they get faster.
Yep.
So I guess I don't have an answer. I'm just saying, like, you're asking me for a sign. Is that really going to be the, or maybe should we putting up fences on our property? Is that maybe it's life-saving, maybe? It just suggestions, okay? I don't have all your answers, but I know that they don't pay signs that say different things on them. You know, we have signs, I think somewhere says horses on the road. You hear those people complain, they're going by me 90 miles. Well, what more can you do? So I don't have an answer. I just telling you something that I experienced as a counselor and people come talk to me about.
That in Terrace Bay, okay. I do know that in Terrace Bay, it was the emergency services that installed the sign for the family there. So they felt that it was an important measure to use. And they successfully advocated for that family. It was the firemen who put it in place. So I agree that people drive exceedingly fast, especially downhill on Hockwell. And that's why I'm afraid. And our family has priced out a fence and it is completely out of our budget because we are spending what we can on Fiona for therapy. So we're down to one vehicle right now because we're saving the money for therapy. But thank you for that. And I understand completely, but I also think that having a sign in place is just a visual cue. Someone might see the sign and start to look on either side of the road just to know, like they might still be driving quickly, but they'll be aware that there's someone around who might not realize.
Yeah, Councillor Calvert.
I know there's a sign that says children on play on Point de Muron. I noticed it, like I know maybe a lot of people other don't, but I know I noticed it. And I can relate to your situation because my great niece lives right across the road. And even with a fence, she still gets, she's 7.
Yeah.
And she's extreme. Even with that fence, she's so smart. She knows how to get out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very
Yeah.
clever.
And she comes into our yard. I don't know how she gets in. She still does. So it is a situation. I understand 100%.
Any layer of protection, I think it would help me sleep at night, knowing that, we've made a little bit of noise about this and maybe people will be aware. Yeah.
Councillor Peacock.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Just wondering, do you have a sample of what Terrace Bay has put up for a sign at all?
I did send an email to the mayor with it was a screenshot from a friend off of Facebook showing the success they had there. And the sign said, autistic child in area.
Okay,
And they said that there was a sign on either end. They had measured a specific distance and they had a sign a little ways before their residence and a little ways after. Yeah.
was it a yellow sign like
It's
all the
a
other?
yellow
Yeah.
caution, a
Okay.
diamond sign, yeah, with a black line and the wording inside.
Okay.
Yeah, there's different versions available online.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about cost, but if we get to that point, I can help fundraise for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. And again, we'll be looking at your request
Thank you
in the
very much.
future. Thanks a lot for coming. And next we have a presentation by Andrew Carr and Jamie Kurichak from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and they are going to make sure that we are so smart about the provincial planning statement. I thank you for coming this morning, and yeah, just make sure your light is green so those outside of the that are watching us via Zoom can hear what is being said. And go ahead, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Council. Thank you for the invitation for us to come speak to you today about land use planning in Ontario, and more specifically about the provincial planning statement. We don't get the opportunity to leave our offices too often, so we really appreciate this opportunity this morning. So we have circulated copies, or your clerk has circulated a copy for us of the new provincial planning statement. Our expectation is that you have read the document in full details and that, no, I'm just kidding. The reason why we're here this morning is we're going to talk to you about some of the changes and how those changes may impact your community and land use planning in your community. So me and Andrew this morning, and maybe I should start by introducing ourselves. My name is Jamie Kurchuk, and I'm joined with Andrew Carr. We're both planners with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and we're going to talk to you about land use planning. We're going to talk to you about the framework. We're going to start from a top-down approach. We'll talk about the Planning Act, the provincial planning statement, and we'll also talk about reviewing development applications in your community. So it's going to be comprehensive. I know we only have about 20 minutes or so, but we'll do the best we can. But just before maybe we start, I'll just a little bit of an introduction about who we are. Some of you may not recognize me, but I actually got my planning start here in this community in Oliver Papoonge in 2012. I was a summer student working for Sharon Martin. And I have some really fond memories of working here. And it was funny, this morning on my drive out here, I almost went to Murillo. And I got that mixed up, but you have a lovely building here now and understand why I've decided to move. It's a great location. And then after I I worked here as a summer student. I worked in the Calgary area for a number of years. And then I moved back home to work for the city of Thunder Bay in 2019. And then since 2022, I've been with the province here. And I work mostly on official plans, but we also do land division files in the unorganized territory, as well as we also do these types of informative presentations to municipal councilors and municipal employees. And I'm joined with Andrew Carr here, and Andrew Carr is really a veteran of the province. He's been with the province for 8 years. And I say veteran, 8 years may not sound like a long time, but he's been appointed to several different roles within the province. He started with MMAH, and then he did a stint with the Ministry of Natural Resources. He's done assignments for the Ministry of Housing, working in affordable housing programs. And most recently, he was also working, he proudly representing Northern Ontario in Southern Ontario, working with our policy team. And Andrew has actually brought Northern Ontario's voice into this provincial planning statement document that you'll see in front of you today. So he has quite a bit of knowledge on this document. So you're in good hands with Andrew in terms of listening to some of the changes, and you'll be able to ask questions if you have any. But before we get to the provincial planning statement, I'd like to just maybe do a quick refresher on how land use planning works in Ontario. So we'll start with the Planning Act, and I know it's sometimes a dreaded word. I know me and Andrew particularly don't like to look into the Planning Act unless we absolutely have to. It's very legalese. There's lots of difficult interpretations in the Planning Act, so we try to avoid it at all costs. But the biggest takeaway is it's the rule book for planning. It has everything in there from, how many days of notice should we give to the public for notice of public meeting. And it also has things in there like what we should include in our official plans. And then, of course, we have the provincial planning statement, which is kind of an overarching policy document. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Andrew's going to get into it in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But those two documents are what we would say is the provincial responsibility in the province. So the next is the municipal responsibility part, and the biggest document that municipalities are responsible for are the official plans. And the official plan is really the big document. It's your community's vision for how you will grow over the next 20 to 30 years. These documents take a lot of time and effort to prepare. And I understand that Oliver Papoon's official plan was approved in 2018. So you generally have between 5 and 10 years to update these documents or create new ones. So I know you're about just on the cusp of thinking about creating a new one. And so it's good timing because we now have a new provincial planning statement. There's some new flexibilities in there that will that I think will really benefit your community in the development of your new official plan. And the last thing I'll say about official plans is they're intended to be flexible. They're intended to be living documents. And unlike what I'll say is what's intended to be the zoning bylaw, zoning bylaws are a little bit more of a rigid document. Zoning bylaws include permitted uses, setbacks, and things like that. And that's really the big two documents that municipalities are responsible for. The other component I would say that municipalities play a large role in land use planning is changing these documents. It's amending them. So we have official plan amendments, we have zoning bylaw amendments, and then of course we have land division. So you also council makes decisions on plans of subdivision, then you have a delegated committee to make decisions on consents and minor variances. So we'll just talk a little bit about land development applications. So official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments, the municipal council is the approval authority for these documents. You're all veteran councilors. You've seen these applications in front of you many times. I just want to touch a little bit on, the amount of work that sometimes goes into, evaluating these documents, and we'll talk a little bit about decisions and some of the changes that have since happened for appeals. So when a municipality receives an official plan amendment application or zoning bylaw amendment, we'll go back to the Planning Act for a really quick second. There are very strict requirements for how these applications can be processed. Typically, we have about 30 days. Your administration will have about 30 days to deem it complete. And then once an application is deemed complete, there's a strict timeline for the administration to prepare a decision and then get it to yourselves for that final decision at a public meeting. And this can happen in as short as 90 days, or it can be 120 days for official plan amendments. So you can appreciate that there's quite a lot of work that goes into making sure that we have all of the necessary studies, we have public input, and then of course there's evaluating these applications against the Planning Act, your official plan, and the provincial planning statement. So a lot of work really goes into these documents. And so the biggest thing I think that I'll leave with you today is that when we make decisions on these land development applications, there's criteria that's built right into the Planning Act that says that when we make a decision, let's say for a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to be consistent with the provincial planning statement. It has to conform to your official plan. And it also has to be just good land use planning. And, what is good land use planning? Well, there's a lot of different, I think, criteria that gets involved. Can that land be serviced appropriately? So if it's a large housing development, that's suggested to be on private services, and let's say they're half-acre lots, is that sustainable in the long term for private servicing with wells and septic? So that's serviceability. And then there's also land use compatibility we have to think about. Let's say that a large scale abattoir wants to set up shop in Oliver Papoonge. Would it be a good idea to put it right next door to one of our residential subdivisions? Probably not. And if that's the case, because sometimes these things happen, what type of buffering can we put in place? So these are all things as a council that you definitely want to consider. And I know you know that. So this is hopefully just a refresher for you all. The last thing that I'd like to talk to you about is appeals. This government has decided in its wisdom that they would like to limit third-party appeals. So who can appeal has certainly changed and it's become more restrictive. So third-party appeals, which means it could be residents, resident group, can no longer appeal official plan amendments or zoning bylaw amendments or plans of subdivisions. The only people who can appeal these decisions of council now are the registered owner and the applicant together. It can be the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. It can be what we call specified persons, which is a new definition under the Planning Act. And that will include utility companies, public bodies, Indigenous groups. But that's pretty much it. If there is a neighbor that is adjacent to this land development application, they no longer have the ability to appeal. And so that's one of the biggest changes. Aside from that, I think that's the most important pieces that I wanted to touch on. So I think really the meat and potatoes of this presentation is going to be on the new provincial planning statement. So with that, I'll pass it over to Andrew. And then after Andrew's done, I believe we'll have some time for questions. So thank you.
Okay. I always hate following Jamie because he's able to speak so fluently about really complex matters in a way that I can't. Unlike Jamie, I have pretty detailed notes. So please forgive me if I'm looking down more than I'm looking up. I'm really envious of your copies of the PPS. We used to bring bound copies of the 2014 PPS back in the day. We don't do that anymore. We don't even get them ourselves. So mine looks like a stapled copy. So you get nice bound ones. I'm envious. I'm really pleased to have been invited today to speak about the release of the new provincial planning statement. Before I get into it, I do want to note the document is really detailed. And because of the time constraints in the format of this presentation, the way I present the information might overlook certain nuances. And so that could affect the way certain matters are evaluated. Excuse me. I'm getting over a cold. So as a result, I would say that the information I provide today shouldn't be used to substitute legal or professional advice on any particular matter. So in 2022, the province initiated a review for approaches for leveraging the housing supportive policies of the provincial policy statement 2020. And I might mix those up because that's been my whole career. It's been the policy statement. Now it's the planning statement. and a growth plan in Southern Ontario called the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The feedback from this review was used to draft the first proposed provincial planning statement that was put out for consultation from April to August of 2023. Using that feedback, a second draft was updated and released for a second round of consultation between May and June of 2024. And in August of this year, the ministry issued the provincial planning statement, which came into effect on October 20th of this year. It replaced both the provincial policy statement 2020 and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which you would know as the Greater Toronto Area. I will note the growth plan for Northern Ontario remains in effect. So there was a number of drivers for the PPS review and update, and really the first is the unprecedented growth that the province has been experiencing. So as a province, we welcomed 500,000 new residents in 2022, and we're expecting to receive an additional 2 million by 2031. And you will not be unfamiliar with this messaging that in response to this growth and ensuring housing is available for our growing population, the province committed to building 1.5 million new homes by 2031. Creating the PPS was a way of streamlining the housing supportive policies. And as I mentioned, the government undertook a review of both documents, tried to pull out the housing supportive policies and merge them into one new framework, and that's the provincial planning statement. So diving into the actual document, which I'm happy to see that you all have, and I would encourage you to follow along because I'm going to try and go in chronological order. The table of contents on the third page outlines the planning matters and policy areas where direction is provided on a whole bunch of specific matters. As with previous policy statements, the PPS provides policy direction on planning for growth, housing, settlement areas, rural lands, and employment areas. There's policy on transportation systems, land use compatibility, sewage, water, and stormwater management, natural heritage, water, agricultural lands, mineral aggregate resources, cultural heritage and archaeological resources, and direction for planning for natural and human-made hazards. While there are updates, frankly, throughout the document, I want to focus on 6 key policy areas. I'm going to highlight that some of these are new in the PPS 2024, while others have been brought forward and slightly changed. The changing of 1 or 2 words can really dramatically impact the way a policy is implemented. So I'm going to talk about that. So turning to page 6, I'm going to speak to policies 2.1.1, 2.1.3, and 2.1.4. The combined effect of these policies is to require municipalities to forecast population and employment growth using provincial population projections, make sufficient land available to accommodate population and employment growth for between 20 and 30 years by designating lands in official plans, and ensuring that at all times there is 15 years of should have brought my water inside. 15 years of residential land available to accommodate a range and mix of housing options to provide for residential growth. Housing options is a defined term that I'm going to speak about shortly. So some of this policy is new, including requiring municipalities to forecast growth using provincial projections. In the past, that's been solely left to the discretion of municipalities. That said, there is a lot of flexibility built in to allow municipalities to adjust those projections as appropriate. So northern municipalities may have certain circumstances like a mine being built or thank you so much. Like a mine being built, which may not be anticipated by provincial projections. And there's flexibility in the policy to allow adjustments for that. So related to housing options, on page 7, policy 211 states that planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options to meet projected needs by establishing an affordable housing target that's brought forward from PPS 2020 and permitting and facilitating all housing options required to meet the social, health, economic, and well-being requirements of current and future residents. So the effect here really is that planning authorities must permit and facilitate all housing options to meet the needs of current and future residents based on projected needs. Much of this policy has been brought forward from PPS 2020. There is new references to coordinating between municipalities and service managers on affordable housing targets. So that's the DSAB. And the big change here is updates to the housing options definition. So housing options is a defined term. It's on page 44 if you're interested in reading it. It's long. It means a range of housing types and typologies, including but not limited to those listed. So there's a whole whack of them listed, and the definition is not limited to what is listed. Some of the listed types that are certainly relevant to Oliver Papoonj are single detached, additional residential units, tiny homes, and rooming houses. Housing options also refers to a variety of housing arrangements, including affordable housing, land lease community homes, being your trailer parks, cooperative housing, and additional needs housing. So much brought forward from 2020, but again, the focus of this document is really to bolster Ontario's housing stock, and the document is framed that way throughout. So turning to settlement areas, on page 9, policy 2.3.2.1 provides that in allowing for settlement area boundary expansions, planning authorities shall consider a list of criteria. And the criteria are related to the need for additional land to accommodate growth, the provision of infrastructure, protecting agricultural lands, and separating residential growth from agricultural facilities. This is a big change from the PPS 2020 framework, as settlement area boundary expansions can now happen at any time, as opposed to in the past. They used to only be permitted at the time of doing an official plan update. So that makes them a decision of council, as in the past, they may have been a decision of the minister. And the other big change is that planning authorities are now required to consider criteria rather than the previous standard where it had to be demonstrated that criteria were satisfied. So this change is intended to provide municipalities with a lot more flexibility in approving expansions to meet current and future needs. And I want to read a verbatim interpretation from our policy team, which is that the new shall consider standard means that municipalities are required to undertake all of the analysis required to consider each of the criteria, but have the flexibility to make decisions that make sense locally based on local priorities. And so that's to say that you consider all of the criteria, whether you have the appropriate infrastructure, whether you're encroaching into agricultural lands, and make a decision based on what it makes sense locally. That said, this is a good point to point out that the document is meant to be read as a whole. And so if you're thinking about expanding settlement areas into prime agricultural land, there are prime agricultural policies that you'll need to consider as well. So turning to rural lands, on page 12, policy 261 outlines the permitted uses on rural lands. So rural lands is a defined term, and it means lands outside of settlement areas and prime agricultural lands. So this policy it applies to the rest of the municipality. If it's not in a settlement area, and it's not prime agricultural land. This policy has been updated. Criteria C looks different. It's changed in 2014. It said limited residential development was permitted. In 2020, it said residential development appropriate to the local circumstance. And now it says allow residential development, including lot creation, where site conditions are suitable for the provision of appropriate sewage and water services. This is a big change, again, which creates a lot more flexibility to allow residential growth in rural areas.
What does that mean? Appropriate sewage and water services?
So typically development in the unincorporated in rural lands is serviced by private services, right? Well and septic. That means lot size is big enough to accommodate both of those things, for sure. And it can also, it can be interpreted by council in ways that you so choose to interpret it. Much of the policy is directive, but is left to municipalities on how to interpret. I will say, the province has guidelines released through a variety of ministries, which help guide municipalities on how to interpret things like that. One is for sure is the D-series guidelines, which outline how properties can be serviced by individual wells and septic systems, if that's helpful. Okay, so the next is partial servicing. So on page 19, policy 3.6.5 has been updated to include an additional situation where partial servicing would be permitted. So where PPS 2020 allowed partial servicing only where necessary to address failed services in existing development and within settlement areas to allow infilling and minor rounding out, the 2024 PPS brings forward those options and includes a third scenario in which you can provide partial servicing. Partial servicing is now permitted within rural settlement areas where development will be serviced by individual wells in combination with municipal and private communal sewage services. So same flexibility as 2020 with one additional scenario where partial servicing can be provided. And then the last policy area I wanted to highlight is the additional residential unit policy in prime agricultural areas. So on page 24, policy 4.3.2.5 states that where a residential dwelling is permitted on a lot in a prime agricultural area, up to 2 additional residential units shall be permitted. Additional dwelling units must comply with a series of criteria that are listed. And this is a new requirement in the PPS 2020 province-wide, PPS 2024, intended to address the housing needs of the agricultural community while preserving the viability of agricultural lands. There is also policy in that section protecting those, prohibiting those additional residential dwelling units which have been created in accessory structures from being severed into new lots. So that's a key consideration there. I will say that there's a fair amount of nuance I glossed over. And so when development proposals are put in front of council, I would say on a site-specific matter, it's much easier to make sure the nuance is captured in a recommendation. So certainly don't glob onto something I've said here and let it inform your decision-making process. The last thing I want to talk about before I end is I want to highlight an updated implementation policy. So on page 32, policy 617 provides that where a planning authority must decide on a planning matter before their official plan has been updated to be consistent with the provincial planning statement, it must still make a decision that is consistent with the provincial planning statement 2024. So that's to say, even though your OP hasn't been updated in the new policy environment, as of October 20th, you still have to make a decision that is consistent with the new PPS. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to cover. On behalf of Jamie and myself, I would really like to thank you for taking the time to hear us on this. And we're really happy to take any questions that you might have, recognizing that we might not have perfect answers.
I have one question.
Sure.
You had mentioned, Jamie, that there cannot be an appeal by a third person, but there can be appeal of a decision by the applicant who applied for example, a consent or whatever, and it gets turned down. We've had this happen. They followed we followed the Committee of Adjustment, or whatever, followed the Planning Act and the official plan and the zoning bylaw. They declined an application. That person appealed and it went in front of the board. And the person that is sitting at the head of that board is not a planner. They don't look at the Planning Act. They just sit there and say, well, it looks like a good idea, go ahead. What does that do to us and Committee of Adjustment when we're trying to do the best we can according to all the information we have in front of us? is the LPAT now just going to let everything go through that we've decided can't go through or shouldn't? That's it. We're really feeling that right now.
To the chair, just for some clarity, when you reference the board chair, we're referring to the appeal board chair, the Ontario Land Tribunal chair. Is
That's the Ontario, yeah, the LPAT chair,
OLT
yes.
chair. Yeah. So generally speaking, and I can't speak on behalf of the Ontario Land Tribunal.
No.
They're a separate party. They're not associated with the ministry. Generally speaking, I think they do choose their chairs to have, or we hope that they have some land use planning experience, even if they're not a planner. They might be a lawyer that has experience in that realm, and they are supposed to make their decisions based off of the planning legislation that we have in place. I understand it can be difficult when there are decisions that where you might share a difference in opinion on the planning matter. And planning is, and I think Andrew really spoke to it well when he said, planning can be very nuanced. And it's not black and white. It can be seen from very different angles by many different people. And so I think the best thing that we can really do in these situations is trust our experts, trust our best judgments on what we believe is good land use planning, and put our best efforts forward, and hope that perhaps in the next go around that you have a decision or an outcome that would result in good land use planning from what your opinion is.
I appreciate you weren't on the board, and I appreciate, none of us know, I don't know who was the chair of the board, but it was disheartening when, and it wasn't a major thing, but it's disheartening when people that you have at these committees and committee of adjustment and council, we have a planner, she's online, she's not here today, but she's listening to us, that we try to do everything according to what we're supposed to do. And then, at the hearing, they just say, no, just go ahead.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening.
Planning is tricky in the world of municipal decision making because many decisions of council are very black and white, right? You have a guiding legislation or guiding policy. There's no third party tribunal, quasi judicial board, as the tribunal is called. Planning is and discipline where you can have 10 planners around a boardroom like this, discuss a particular proposal and receive 10 completely different opinions on whether it's consistent with provincial policy or not. And that makes it tricky, particularly for small municipalities, because I know something like a tribunal hearing, having done one, took me probably 200 hours of my time to write my witness statement and everything. It's a huge cost. I can appreciate that. It remains part of the provincial land use planning framework to create accountability, and sometimes that can be very difficult to navigate in real life. I appreciate that point, unfortunately.
Well, thank you. Was there any questions of anyone? Councillor Viss.
Yes, if back page 19, where you said in rural settlement area, new development will be served by individual on-site water services in combination with municipal sewage service. What if there's a development and they can prove that sufficient water and have the private septic systems? What's wrong with that?
Like sufficient water in terms of municipal water?
Well, yes, like,
Piped water.
yeah,
Right.
pipe water, like for instance, you can have
Yeah.
smaller lots as long
Yeah.
because it's the distance you need between a well and the septic systems, right? But
Yeah,
if we provide water
yeah,
then you can have smaller lots, and it
Yeah.
doesn't say that, it doesn't.
yeah. No, I appreciate the question. It's one we get all the time. Sorry, it's one of my first council meetings through the chair. It's been Ontario's experience, and the Ministry of Environment is very stern on this. When we see partial servicing, the provision of municipal or communal water and private septic systems, it can have really big ramifications environmentally to the water table, because residents tend to use more water than their septic system can accommodate. And so it's been the experience of the ministry that it can have the effect of creating real environmental problems that are really difficult to mitigate. And I appreciate that might not be the circumstance in every circumstance, but it is the general experience of the ministry over a pretty long period of time.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I would kind of object to that because if we have them on a, on a metered system, they're not going to overuse their water if their bill is going to get higher every month. We have a subdivision in Roslyn that is on piped water and their own septic system on every lot. It's been there for many, many years. We want to expand it because we've now got very shortly arsenic-free water because we've had to go through that expense. But now all of a sudden, boom, we cannot go further because we have to have.
So Roslyn is a rural settlement area.
It's a settlement area, yes.
So in rural settlement areas, you can provide, you can use partial servicing, assuming it is infilling and minor rounding out, which is not defined in policy. So that's a judgment decision of particular planners and council. If you're looking for a place where this happens really regularly, you don't have to look very far. The city of Thunder Bay is regularly considering applications for infilling and minor rounding out. Might be a place to take a look if you're interested.
Yeah, because we have a piece of land that we were going to put affordable housing on, which was one objective the province is looking at. We want to expand our water system because we don't have enough people on there to actually, you know, it's just too expensive. It's only got 30 users right now. And so we would expand our water system. And as like I said, we've just spent a large amount of money so that it's arsenic free. And then we were told, no, because it's going to be private septic, they wouldn't be approving to this. So now you're saying that if it's infilling, which it is, it's a piece of area where just continues to the village.
I don't want to get into providing any
No,
advice on this specific matter, just because I don't know the circumstance.
Well, yeah, you have to see, I know you have to see all the.
No, I appreciate, I will say that, I guess, sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean to do that. There's flexibility built into the new policy document on how you can expand your settlement area. Much more discretion for municipalities than there previously has been. And there's flexibility for how new development can be serviced in settlement areas. And that might help you move forward in the process.
It's just seeing that little light at the end of the tunnel, the possibility that would give us an encouragement to keep going in that direction. It was disheartening to hear that information and thinking this is black and white and this is it, you know, but if there's a little bit of a light there that we can aim towards, I think we will continue to try and see if this can work. Councillor Riss?
Yes, it's interesting when you said infilling. Do you consider infilling and expansion in the same?
So the province has been very reluctant over time to define what infilling and minor rounding out is.
And that's, I think, the problem. That's what we're coming to. The new area that we're looking at is just an expansion of it. So is it called infilling or is it called expansion? And if there's a difference in the two, where does that leave us?
So infilling, I guess, just generally typically means between existing lots of record. Minor rounding out is much more nebulous. Really, the question becomes what is minor? And so it's a tricky situation. I would say that it's an area where there's a lot of nuance built into the policy, and having administration consider the policy in that particular circumstance might be an avenue worth exploring for you.
It's just given us an avenue to look towards because it'll be a benefit to our residents, of course, and that are on the water system, but also to us because there'll be affordable housing there for those that can't afford the more expensive housing. So we'll keep plugging away. Any other questions, Councillor?
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, gentlemen. Fine job done this morning. You had mentioned tiny homes with the description in the housing options. And in a couple of weeks, we do have an application coming forward with regard to an official plan amendment. The applicant is seeking to amend the application policies of the Oliver Papoonja official plan to clearly establish that affordable dwellings are to be encouraged and residential development in the municipality is not restricted by a minimum size of dwelling unit floor area.
Mm.
So the floor area pertains to the zoning bylaw, but the allowable development is official plan. Am I correct in that thought?
So the zoning bylaw is an implementing tool for the official plan. It's not uncommon to have minimum dwelling unit sizes in zoning bylaws. That said, most zoning bylaws, well, all zoning bylaws have been drafted in a policy environment which may have had different direction than the current policy environment has. This is another area where I would be really trepidatious to wander into what really is a municipal decision. And I apologize if that's a wholly unsatisfactory answer. I would say look to your administration to review the proposal in context with the new policy and provide a recommendation.
Councillor Campoff?
So just to follow along with the same thought, so this document doesn't change the ability for a municipality to enact minimum dwelling sizes.
The provincial planning statement is meant to be read as a whole. It neither explicitly prohibits minimum dwelling sizes or implicitly I would say it's minimum dwelling unit size agnostic, if that's helpful. That said, there are a number of new policies around affordable housing and explicitly allowing tiny homes in a way that meets the projected needs of residents that you'll want to consider in any decision.
Yes, I believe right now ours is according to the Ontario Building Code.
Yeah.
The size. So that's what we are going by. Okay, any further questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming, and we've got lots of things to consider. Because we are working in our official plan, and after that our zoning bylaws, so.
Looking forward to working with you on the official plan.
You will be seeing our township, our municipality coming. Yes.
Thank you for the water. I really appreciate it. I don't know if I would have made it through without it, so thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay. We now have a resolution that's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the council meeting held on November the 12th. Were there any errors or omissions? So I have that resolution moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, carried. We now have a resolution. There is two options. One is to recommend the extension of the RFQ 09-2023 supply and deliver miscellaneous firefighting equipment and services. Or recommend the issuance of an RFQ 09-2023 for the supply and delivering of initial specific business Valley Fire Protection, and the other one is not. I will just pass that on to Wayne, if you just want to explain the differences between the two, please. Yes.
You didn't ask if there was any discussions on the minutes. You just asked if they were approved.
Oh, I apologize. Is there any discussion?
Yes,
on
I have one on page 3 of 9. Who has the insurance for the Norwest Beer Garden? Did somebody look into that? That's a very important item. I think we need to know who covered the insurance on that. That was brought up.
Through the chair, they give us insurance annually.
Oh, wonderful. Then that's looked after. Thank you. That's all. I just want to make sure when I seen that, I said it's very important that we know. Okay, thank you.
Certainly. So I'll ask the CAO just to explain the difference between the two resolutions.
All right, so the first one you see there is to extend it. The RFQ originally put out there says there's a possibility of 2 one-year extensions subject to satisfactory performance of the supplier, continued requirement of the municipality. You need to again then confirm what the pricing is, and Valley Fire has told us they'd hold the pricing for what's there now. And haven't had any issues with Valley Fire in this renew or extend, and I just issue another RFQ. And I think we should extend it. It's been a good relationship, as I just said, and we have the possibility of renewing it at the same price. And in the background there, the amount we spent in 2023 was about $2,600, and in 2024 it's 8,000. So that's my summary.
Okay, so I'll put it out for discussion, both resolution extension of the service. And the second one means that we go back out to anyone for quotes. Councillor Viss.
Just a clarification, the intent is to supply miscellaneous fire equipment and service. Any major items will be Dennis Pop, and I have no problem. Thank you.
But you have no problem with the first option then? Yeah, okay, so any more comments? I will put out the very first resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there other further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So therefore, the second resolution will not come to vote. The next item we have is report number 2024-2017 is the annual review of the emergency management plan for the municipality. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on our emergency plan? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We now have an award of RFQ 28, 2024, which is for portable ponds. That resolution has been moved and seconded. It will be a purchase from Portable Ponds to TransCanada Safety for the amount of $6,408. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Viss.
Yes, again, for clarification, I understand 3,000 gallons is very handy to have, but if you have a major fire, where would you fill those 3,000 gallon ponds from? And how quick could you get it there? Like if you have it in, I guess, our tanker's going to have to go there to whatever, where we get the supply, whether it's a river or whether it's whatever. By the time you unload that in these ponds again, what's the gain? I just help me out a little bit. Why that is such a bonus to have those two large ponds there when if you knew beforehand you're going to have a fire, yeah, of course you fill the thing, but you don't know that. So I guess that's my question. I just.
It's a fair question. So we currently, most of the trucks currently have ponds that are in the 1,500 gallon range. Our smallest tanker is, I think, 25 or 2,600 gallons, all the way up to over 4,000 gallons. So by going to a bigger pond, it allows us to have the tanker come, drop the entire load of water and run and fill up, opposed to dropping half the tanker and as it's getting used, continue filling the pond up and then going to. So the gain is that we've got more time in between the pond emptying and allowing us more time to get the tankers full and back to the sea.
Thank you. That's fair.
Councillor Campoff. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, how many people does it take to manhandle one of these? If it's going to be twice the size of if not more than the previous.
It's going to add probably one person to take them off and set them up. We still need 3 or 4 to set the small ones up, just from moving them around. So it's not going to have a big impact.
And it'll fit on any of the new trucks that we are anticipating purchasing?
So the new trucks, yes, the pond racks on both the new trucks will accommodate these ponds. So.
Any further discussion? The resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we have an RFQ 38-2024, which is for the hose surface. And this resolution has been moved and seconded that it would be Valley Fire Protection Services Limited. That would be the person that we would purchase it from. It's open for discussion. Counselor Viss?
Yeah, and the question, what's the total cost? It gives you all these numbers here, but what's the total cost? We have 5,400 left in our budget, so what's the total cost what you're proposing here?
Yes. Yes.
This item doesn't have a like a set amount that we're awarding here. It's prices. And the amount that is in the budget this year, 2024, is $21,000. And next year, we would anticipate a similar amount in the budget. So it's working sort of like a standing offer. There's prices for doing the work, and we have to manage our budget to get the hosing done using these prices and not go over budget. It's that kind of a system.
Yeah, the
And-
prices are on page 50.
Right, but the quantities are not listed here, but there were quantities suggested in the RFQ. And I believe the estimation was that to do all of our hose testing would be in the neighborhood of $20,000, something like that, or 15,000. But it's again, it's a budget management issue. You approve these prices, you have to do the hose testing, and you need to stay within your budget.
So if I understand it correct, then we're not going to exceed $5,400 at the intent.
Well,
21,000.
that's what's been
Well,
spent.
this is what's
so far.
left.
So that's the balance, so.
Yeah.
That means that's how much has been spent, and so there's about 15,500 left. That's the expenditures, 5,400.
That's what they've already,
Balance in the account is 5,400.
What's spent, yeah.
that's what was
Well,
spent.
that's spent.
Yes.
Or am I reading that wrong? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Any other questions? All right, the resolution's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Then we have the award of RFQ 36-2024 for the bunker gear extractor. The resolution has been moved and seconded that it goes to ABC Fire and Safety Equipment for purchase of $9,700. Any questions? The resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item we have is the award RFQ 25-2025 for the SCBA radios. The resolution has been moved and seconded to purchase 6 from Kenworth NX 3200 radios from Spectrum Telecom Group Limited for a price of $10,260. Any discussion? Mr. Peacock?
Thank you. Just wondering, how many radios do we currently have? And what happens to the old radios as they're being replaced?
So I'd have to dig up an actual number of total radios we have. These radios are specific to the SCBA units.
Hmm.
There are currently 6 of them. They'll be surplused or put back into our rotation of personal issue radios. But these are specific to be assigned to SCBA units, so that when people are going into buildings or in the hot zones, they've got a radio with it.
And you have 6 right now. You're just replacing the 6.
Replacing the 6. The old radios are not compatible with what the new SCBA's are.
Is it, with the old radios, is it something that you could put on as surplus that perhaps other fire departments may be interested in purchasing, or do they just get?
So that's an option. We'd look at the number of people that currently don't have portable radios assigned to them. And if we can move them into that situation, we'd do it. If not, they'd be surplus and sold. I do have in next year's budget 6 more radios. We're trying to start moving. A lot of our radios are very old, and there are battery issues in that. So we're going to start rotating or try to rotating to get upgraded radios into the system. Those will all be surplused.
That was my next question. I know you had 13,000 in the 2025 budget, so I was wondering if that was for 6 more. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hey, Councillor Viss?
Yes, a bit of a problem with this. We send out an RFQ stating what we're looking for, and the two companies apparently had what we required. We changed that because somebody comes along and says, I'll give you all this extra options, which cost extra money. And so where does that leave us if we change the specs of what the original request for proposal was? Because if I read this correct, the one that was within the budget almost had what we were asking for. Because it states the next one has that much more extra. Well, we didn't ask for that. So we're going away from what our request for proposal was. So I just wonder where we're going with this, because the next guy said, well, they don't sit a bid in there because they'll change it. If somebody offers something a little extra, then we're going to go there. And that's, I don't have a problem because it's better stuff, but I have a problem the way we proceed with this. That's all. I don't think that's a good thing to do.
So if I may, I wouldn't view it as a change in what we're asking for. The, both radios had, met all the requirements. The radio that we're proposing to go with has extras that are built in. There's no extra cost. It's like buying a pickup truck. One has power windows, one doesn't at the same price. And for the extra money, we're getting more value for the dollar. The first one does meet the requirement, but the second one just has more options included that makes it a better purchase.
That's my point. Exactly my point.
Yeah,
Kind of.
through the chair, I agree with Councillor Vis's concern, because if we had put the specs out, including all these other options, the other vendor may have come up with a better price. Like, we just don't know, right? So it's not a real good way to put a tender out.
So, and if I can just add, so the same situation happened with the two rescue trucks we purchased. In our tender, it was for a 3/4 ton. The one that was awarded was a 1 ton. So it was a higher rating than what we asked for. It turned out that was the cheaper price between them, but it's the same kind of a scenario. To me, either one meets it. It's just this is gonna be the radio that we move forward with, so that we have batteries, and like now we've got 5, 6 different types of radios, which is a management nightmare. So
request noted that it would not necessarily be the lowest bidder would get the contract. Also the Motorola that was CRC provided, they could have provided any number of options. The Motorola does not have these features, so therefore they could not have added these features to their Motorola, or they could have submitted multiple products saying you can have this Motorola 3000 or this other version of it. So that's
So if the original request had included these other 4 items, Motorola couldn't have
they
bid.
would not have been they would not have no.
Well, I think that's taking quite an assumption. Maybe the Motorola 3000 couldn't, but what if they had a Motorola 3200 and it had it? Like, come on, guys, you can't do that. Now, going back to the truck, that's fine. You got a better truck, but for the same amount of money, and there's the lowest dealer, not a problem. This guy come in at 8,000 and he has all the extra options, fine, go. But you changed the thing. I cannot support this. I'm sorry.
Again, we didn't change the RFQ. These are simply in the evaluation, like we do with everyone. These are simply additional features that were available, and the recommendation was made because these extra features have value. In the opinion of the fire chief and the fire department, that they were worth
A higher price.
higher price. So we didn't change anything. We just, and again, like almost everyone who comes in, and the language is always says, not necessarily the lowest bid. So
Along those lines, did the RFQ state that these were minimum requirements? Or, you know, so the people had a possibility of exceeding them, or?
yeah, the RFQ said that these were it stated the minimum that they had to do. And it did not preclude, it did not say only these, there was no exclusionary language saying you could not do more or anything, you know, exceeded. You just had to meet the minimum, right? If you had a ladder, it had to be 12 feet. Well, you could have a ladder that was 14 feet as long or whatever, right? So.
My point would be, sorry, to the
Okay.
mayor, you know what? I know what they're saying and everything, but my thing is, as long as we're under budget, that's number one priority. That's what I would look at. Like, we're still under budget with this. We're not going above budget, so I can understand why getting a better radio is a way to view this, and in the future, if this is going to be more compatible. So as long as we're under budget, I'm okay with it.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. And at the present, is it CRC that has provided the radios in the past?
The past, it's been a lowest bidder when we've bought a radio, so it could be CRC, it could be any of the companies. That's why we have a bit of a dog's breakfast for radios, because one year this model wins it, the next year this model wins it. So we're trying to move to a standard radio so that I don't have to, you know, wait for 6 months to get a battery for one radio that was purchased 5 years ago.
And I'm just wondering, as far as a service agreement, do we have something specific with CRC or anything like that, or just?
No, there's no service agreements for this. If it's a Kenwood radio, we go to whoever services the Kenwood radios. If it's Motorola, we go to whoever services the Motorola.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. No further discussion. I will call the vote. This recommend the purchase of the 6 Kenwood radios. All those has been defeated. Okay, we have the 2025 OMPF allocation notice, page 55.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I've got a question if I
Oh.
could. So what's the next step then for this? Do we re-tender this out, or I do need radios for our SCBA units, so.
Through the chair, I would suggest we re-tender it out. With the extra, if the extra features are valuable to the department, they can be added to the spec.
Mhm.
Like that would.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, that's, and then, because I mean, if it was important to have those extra features, they should have been perhaps in the spec the first time.
so the issue is that I didn't put the energy into outlining each of the features that has to be on the radio. My features were intrinsically safe and robust enough for SCBA units and provide what it is. So so if we re-tender it, then I'll basically change, but then I think it turns more into a proprietary thing where it's not a quotation, it's gonna be a tender, or we're gonna say, this is the radio we want, period. And it's gonna exclude other vendors, because it'll be a Kenwood model XYZ, and only one company will be able to bid on it.
But to be fair, if it's valuable to the department to have a standard for the radios, like you were saying, that it's been a challenge having a dog's breakfast of radios. I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do. Like if we've got, like, that's a very valuable, I could understand that's a very valuable thing to have a standard and have the same radios across the department eventually. It's gonna take a while to get there, and I don't have a problem going that direction.
Oh, great.
are we doing something more like a RFP where we're asking for a package? And we're going to be using these radios long-term?
Wayne, sorry, Councillor Viss.
Okay, just to make things, hopefully we can make these things simple. We had two people that bid on it. If we go to the second one, that was the lowest tender, and say, all right, these are items, can you provide them and what's your cost? And if they can't beat this other guy, then go ahead and buy them. Instead of going to, if they're important to have, that cuts out a whole lot of time. Just one call to this CRC communication, say, all right, these are things we'd like to have in there, give us a cost. Can you provide it? If they can't even provide it, then we're done. There's no problem. So that help you?
Yeah, I guess that's
I'll
the
call
point.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
but should do
Point of
that.
my question is, what are we doing as a next step? Whether
Yeah.
we redo it or.
Well,
whether
if we can legally do that, I'm all for that, but give those people a chance. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Peacock?
Just one further comment, this late in the year, why don't we order a dozen? Because you want 6 next year, perhaps they can sharpen their pencil. Just a thought.
So I agree 100%. I don't want to step on treasurer's toes, but to be honest, in the past, to go over budget has been a flat no. So I don't even think about doing that. Absolutely, I put money in next year. And Brent and I actually talked about that to say, if we're doing it, why not order 12 of them now? But it's a gun shy thing.
Black Friday sales.
Yes, you gotta watch that budget. Yes, Wayne?
Yeah, if the council's okay with it, I mean, we can bring it forward and then next year we know that we're using some next year money for what we're doing now. It's possible.
At this point in time, if we are going to put it out, I suspect the radios will not be delivered until 2025. And we will use the reserve 12,500 from this year's budget. As
Add it
reserve
to next.
purchase, added to next year's budget.
There we go.
At this point in time.
Oh, there you go.
So as long as, to Councillor Vissa's point, it changes the tender then. So 6 over 12, maybe pricing changes. Not trying to make things difficult, but if that's the
I
road
hear
we're
ya.
going down,
We'll have to put it all back out again.
I need radios for those SCBA units. We are running a line that
Okay,
For 12 then?
it's up to you guys to be.
well, there's no way the bill is coming through. The product won't be here in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if they're in stock.
And we don't need the council resolution to tell them to do 12.
okay. Everybody
I
on
think
the-
it's settled. Yeah.
All righty, 2025 OMPF allocation notice. It has increased from, it's that we're getting $121,500 more. So that is nice, good news to receive. And then we have the 2025, yes.
On that, like farm area measurements and I highlighted that. We have a lot of farmland. Does that not have implication on our funding?
I circled that too. It's not applicable, it says. Counselor. I believe we don't hit the percentage, right?
I don't know what the rationale is, but last year, you look at the bottom of page 55, the last sentence, second last sentence. Last year, we had 28.5% for farm measure, and this year it says NA. So as it explains there, the Ministry of Finance was supposed to give us the municipal OMPF workbooks and the Rural Municipal Fiscal Circumstances Index workbooks, and they're not here yet. And in those things, that's where you find out why your numbers are what they are. So there should be an explanation, I guess, of why it says NA there, or maybe it's just an error on their part, but we need these books to find out
I
what happened.
remember.
Maybe they changed the policy and now we're NA.
I remember the conversation a few years ago on that, and they said a certain percentage of it has to be farmland, and we didn't hit the percentage. But we can certainly call the provincial office here and ask them to get that information for.
Close our agricultural land percentage wise.
Yeah,
How much they want.
It was high. It
All
was
the
high
whole
then.
Valley, beside the little parts in the north.
So we can contact the provincial, our provincial representative, and they'll get those numbers for us. Okay,
As I said, the 28.5% for 2024, there was a table in the 2024 workbook that explained why it is that. We don't have the 2025 version, so who knows why it says NA.
yeah, and what our percentage is would be interesting. Okay,
Through the chair, do we know if it's a negative or a positive with the farmland percentage, like how it impacts the calculation?
Again, in the workbook, I didn't look to see exactly how that affects it, but I think it has something to do with what your numbers are in.
yeah, and I would think it would go up.
Maybe. You hope.
Yeah.
But that's different than the program where you would get, the farm tax rate is 25% of residential.
Yeah.
And if you have a certain amount of farmland, you can get that paid to the municipality, but we don't need that threshold. But this thing's something different. This is a different nuance to the way they do this calculation here.
Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. I was pleased to see that it referred back to the 2024 return roll, and we're not using something from impact from 2016, as far as the households. This is just money the province provides, just looking for clarification, money that the province provides. It isn't earmarked for anything specific. It just offsets the budget.
Sorry, Randy. Okay, it is specifically supposed to help us pay for our external agencies, but it doesn't do that by any means.
Sorry, but isn't this even less than it was about 7 years ago?
It's gone down.
I have to take a look at the prior numbers, but I do believe you're right. Maybe 5 years ago or something, we were getting maybe $1,075,000, and it
Yeah.
was cut, and now it's been
Look,
put back up. Just to expand on it, a lot of municipalities led by AMO have been combating the provincial government about the OMPF not keeping up with inflation, and wanted to have a review of the municipal provincial fiscal framework, but the provincial government is not going that direction. That's what they said at the AMO conference last year. And it looks like the provincial government, in reaction to those calls for that review of the fiscal framework, have put another $100 million into the OMPF envelope. Maybe they'll be doing something else in the near future, but that's what we have right now.
Okay,
as it continues with this assessments, it's just gonna like it impacts us because you compare everyone else's in northern, like we're so much above them that we just get dragged down.
yes.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to comment some other little detail we have in there in the second paragraph on page 55. They have this thing called the Northern and Rural Fiscal Circumstances Grant Component. We got $35,000, and they calculate your rating, and it's very complicated system they use. Well, our rating out of 0 to 10, 10 means you're really in bad shape. 0 means you're great. We got 1.4. So that means we're considered well-to-do, so we're not getting much money there.
Alrighty. Next is the 2025 cost of living adjustments for council members and non-union employees. We have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. Any discussion, Councillor Viss?
Yeah, just for clarification, the cost of living, is that the same as what the union is getting, a 3% increase in salary? Then I think that's a set deal. We had that resolution years back for that the non-union all follow exact costs. That's fine.
Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. No longer have a paper for the office and the public works garage?
Through the chair, those duties have been split between the two existing caretakers we have. The one from Roslyn looks after the office and the one from Marilla looks after public works. It's reflected in the rate you see before you.
Okay,
Do they have one?
they may have, and if not, they just don't have a price there, or they have one, there is a rate there.
It's a budget line item for them, but.
There is no caretaker there anymore. There used to be, and this continues along, even though the position's not filled. It's still a rate there.
Right. Rate's still there in the union agreement. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded, all in favor, opposed, carried. Now we have the 2025 regular meeting schedule, and that's on page 67. If anyone sees any problem with these dates. We have a resolution that's been moved and seconded to recommending the adoption of this meeting schedule for 2025. All in favor, opposed, carried. Then we have a revision of bylaw 1051-2017. That's the revisions of the bylaw are for our management and non-union employees agreement, that it be approved. The resolution's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councillor Viss?
I just, as they're going through here, I see there's some changes and they look good. I have no problem with it, but as I went through that, I started to think, when COVID hit, we made a lot of changes, made it more, it was difficult for people to be at work and here in the office and so on. So, and that made sense that they had time off and they could work from home. I'm wondering now that COVID is all done, should we be looking at some of those changes we allowed and say, if you have a 40-hour week, you work 40 hours a week in this office. And if you have a 35-hour week, you should be here. Should we be looking at that, bringing it back to the normal? Sometimes I come in here on a Friday, it's almost like a morgue. And you know, it doesn't sit well when you walk in. So I was just saying, is it worthwhile looking at? Because we hear the CEO saying we need extra staff for overtime. It doesn't matter. If I'm at home or at the farm, I don't get half done at home is what I would do if I was actually at the place of work. Honestly, that's the way it is. And I'm not saying make major, but maybe could we have staff look at it? Should we look at that and bring it back to what we were prior to COVID? Just a suggestion.
The 4-day alternate week, that was not because of COVID. That was for a benefit to the employees. They work extra hours on those 4 days to make up the time. So they work, I think even an hour more than they were working before on a 5-day week. And they have found out that once they're here, they work a lot better with that extra hour. They're more productive because they're already in the groove. So they're going to stay in the groove. And they appreciate having the long weekend, every second long weekend. So it was more of a kind of giving them a bit of a little extra to stay here at the municipality, and they appreciate it. There's always a representative from every department here on Friday. So you can get an answer to your question. You know,
Yeah, I don't know.
And maybe the CEO sometime gives a report, whether it's in camera or whatever, saying how satisfied he is with the way things are working. And then that makes us all feel better. Say, hey, if he comes to us and say, this has really improved what we've done from where we're at, wonderful. That's like, I'm only guessing what I see, Mayor Lucy, and I thought, well, we should bring it up, and then the CEO could say, hey, but wait a minute, Alan, this is we've really gained by doing this, or maybe we haven't. And that's all I'm saying.
right? Or that would be a report for in camera, or
Well, I can comment on it.
Okay.
I think it's working well for us. You measure with complaints, like we don't have people phoning counselors saying I came here and no one was here. It's maybe a perception, but when you walk in the door, there's someone here that deals with you.
Mhm.
We're managing to get that done. And on the employee side, the employees think it's great. It's, it's a good thing for people. Gives them more time to do their family type of things. They have that second Friday off. I know I talk with some employees, they schedule their medical appointments and other kinds of stuff for the Friday. So we're kind of getting, we're not we're not suffering because of that policy. And with regard to the work at home in general, we have very little people, very few that work at home. Almost everybody, they always come to this office. There can be the odd time when somebody works at home because, say, the furnace man is coming and they got to be there to let the person in to look at the furnace or whatever, but it's not a standard practice here, unlike many other public and private sector places where it is, and it's really impacting their productivity. We don't have that issue here, in my opinion.
Mayor Lucy, that's sufficient. I don't think he needs to make a report. That's all we need to hear. If they're happy with what is going on, he's the fella that knows how it's working here. So thank you very much for your report.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. Just a few questions. If a new employee or there's a new hire and it's the non-union position, they're enrolled in benefits right away and as well as holiday consideration, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a discussion in here about the types of vacation entitlement systems,
Mhm.
advanced versus accrued.
Mhm.
And people have been hired on the advanced way since this bylaw was put in place and even before then. And the idea there is when you get started, you get your 3 weeks up front. And if you quit halfway through the year and taken more vacation than you earned, we would get that from you.
Mhm.
The other way, the accrued system, is you work a year and then you get your vacation entitlement. Nobody wants that anymore. It's hard to hire people on that basis. And what ends up happening to the municipality as well, when somebody quits, you got to pay them out lots of vacation because they've been there for a year and not had any vacation. So what this bylaw proposes is that we discontinue the accrued system. It's something that's kind of like not working out for us. So we'll just stick with the advanced type of system. We don't have any abuses where people get hired here. They work a couple of months. They've used all their vacation. Kind of on top of that, it doesn't really happen. Your supervisor still approves your vacation.
Now, with regard to vacations, it does indicate in here that they can take 3 weeks off in a row. And if probably doesn't happen often, but should it happen, I just want to ensure that there's someone else that can either do that person's position or that the emails and the phone are covered, because quite often, like in our contracts we have for, say, for instance, ice rentals, if there's a cancellation, they're to email the operations at Oliver Papoonj. Well, if that person is on holiday, or if we have other staff that are off for that length of time, just want to be sure it's
Yes.
covered.
There's always someone.
What we do, what that says is that no more than 3 weeks, you got to ask the CAO clerk. But if it's 2 weeks, you got to talk to your boss, and that's where, your boss may say, well, that's not going to work out because we're doing this and that, and you won't be able to do that. Or if you want to take that time, who's going to be answering the phone when somebody wants to rent the hall or whatever. So those things have got to get worked out. People need to be able to back each other up. And we have backups on things that are on demand. We have 2 people that take care of hall stuff. There's one primary and one secondary. Cemetery, we've got a couple of people, so we have that covered off. There is going to be, and everyone knows about how to hand out a building permit. Well, not everyone, but most of them, the people we put in the front, they know all the stuff about looking for land cards and landfill cards, et cetera. But, sure, there's going to be a time when somebody wants something or other, and Susie's off on Friday, and she's the one that was dealing with them, and the person there sitting there may not know that. But
Just the same as when it comes to tax time. Is if that the person who's responsible for the tax billing processing and they want to have holidays and there's someone else that wants to have holidays, is there a seniority kind of thing in effect at all?
This is what the manager of every department takes care of. They're the ones that make sure that there's always someone here. And decisions I'm sure there are times where 2 people want to have the same week or 2 weeks off. It's up to the manager of that department say, no, this doesn't work, and they must have some kind of system, if it's seniority or whatever, to decide who gets what. So I'm
appreciate
sure
that.
there's always somebody who takes care of it.
I just want to refer to page 74. When you look at near the top of the page, there's something called vacation schedules. So the idea is everyone puts in their vacation request by February 28th.
Right.
And then you look at it and see how it fits in. There's always the operational considerations. And anything after that time, first come, first served basis and subject to operational requirements. So we have to take into account, people want to take vacation, we got to do the job here, and we got to get the job done. So that's gonna, vacation is not we try to accommodate people on vacation, but if we need somebody here, you're not going on vacation. That's what will happen.
And the only other comment that I had was, with regard to sick leave. I think the Ontario government changed the policy, and employees are no longer, an employee no longer needs to visit a doctor to obtain a note for minimum illness lasting up to 3 days. I think that was a change, May of 24 with regard to sick leave that's referred to on page 75. So I'll leave that with you if you want to have a look at that. I did see that online.
Well, it does say they may be required. And as you just said, if something comes through, and I'm not familiar with what you're saying, but if something comes through and it says it's now this gets trumped. So.
Okay. Any other items? Any other questions? So we have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is the Thunder Bay Police Services Board Strategic Plan Consultation. They want to have some meetings with council.
That's correct. We had this happen back in 2021. They're redoing their strategic plan. They want to have a consultation session with council, and they'd like to have it before December.
Before December.
Or, before the third week of January. Yeah, I had to contact this person and ask them about their timelines. If you look on page 78, it doesn't really tell you when you want to meet. We could have said July next year.
Oh, I
So
know. They're not gonna
I
do that.
had to ask them about, okay, when do you need this done?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
This 13th.
Monday, I'm usually available. Didn't bring my book with me, so anyway. Mondays are usually clear days for me. How about everyone else? December what, 13th? Oh, no. Oh, no, we're talking about either December, they want it done before January, the what?
Says the third week of January.
Before the third week of
Open to
January.
interpretation. I don't remember what that means.
To go to 6/13, that'd be third week.
Of January?
Yeah. Just write it in for now, see what they say. Please. Yeah.
Monday. Well, that gives us a chance to take a look and see if it works for us.
We'll suggest two of them, January 6th.
Well, they want 2 dates. Don't they want 2 dates?
Well, I
Two
put
lines
2
there.
lines. If you got 8
Oh.
dates, we'll put that down. But
No, okay, well, put January 6th and 13th and see how that works, and we'll check our calendars and see how it works for us
what
in
time would
January.
be appropriate?
8:30 in the morning, 8 AM. No, in the winter, we don't want to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning in the winter, so 9 AM, 9 AM?
We'll have them come here, suggest this location.
Oh, yes, I'm not driving to the city.
9 a.m.
If they want a meeting, they gotta come here.
The last time it was in the rural hall because of the COVID issues, we needed the spacing.
Oh, we're okay here. We got lots of,
Okay, so I've got January 6th and January 13th, 9 AM suggestions.
yeah. All righty. We have a resolution moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Then we have the municipally issued cell phone policy. We have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. Councillor Viss?
I only have one question. Do we have a problem with what we got in place now? You don't have a problem? Just a new one?
No? That I know of.
Right now, we have no policy.
No.
So we're putting this policy in. We do have some people that use the phones personally, and then we get them to pay us back. This puts it in writing that that's what happens. And some of the other things, they're kind of things that you would think people would understand. You're not supposed to be using these things for internet gambling or whatever. So we put that in here. That's it. You're not supposed to be using your phone for something that as it says, certain things, that's not what you do. Like I'm looking at page 81, personal use of a municipal issued cell phone should be minimal, not incur costs for the company. Well, sorry, it should say municipality, but anyways. It's just kind of rules that make sense to ensure there's not abuse of these things, and that's what it's about.
Okay. All righty, Councillor Peacock.
They're all on the same plan. They're $35 a month plus HST, so the annual cost is about $6,000. And then we have a couple of iPads or whatever they are on there, and they're even less expensive. So it's not a big cost, but a cell phone is something
Necessary, yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that you need to keep track of and make sure it's not being used the wrong way, et cetera.
Now, when we have an employee that leaves, can they keep that number and turn the phone in? I know the phone has to be turned in prior to them leaving, but just because some people came with their own cell phone number that they kept, and we adopted that plan.
Chris?
Specific through the chair, the same number that I have was been around for
Years, yeah.
24 years.
Mhm.
The
So you
phone
keep your
numbers-
number.
The phone number stays with the department. Most of the cell phones that Wayne's talking about are new since my time here. So we haven't had that issue where we've had to hand over a number yet. It's been for newer employees. I believe John's phone is still Kevin Green's. And I believe Wayne's used to stay Peggy Dupuis. So
Yes.
we haven't had an issue with those type of things.
Okay, Sean?
That being said, the municipality does control the number, and if we choose to, we could give somebody the number if they wanted to leave and take the number with them. We could agree to that, but it's up to, it's up to us
Yes.
to decide to do that.
Okay.
So.
And I'm just gonna add, the fire department's got two of them.
Mhm.
Those numbers have to stay with the municipality and the fire department. They're published through all the emergency plans.
Well, that's what I mean, that number is in all our books. Why would you give it to the employee and then they'll be getting calls from the township? So, yeah, we'll make sure that he gets new number when he leaves.
Don't call
So we have a resolution moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Authorization to award building envelopes. The RFP 11-2024 building envelope. The resolution has been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. It's report on page 83. Yes.
So through the chair, this tender, as it states, closes Friday. We already had one proponent drop off his thing. So we anticipate coming in under that budget that's allocated in the budget for this. It gives Wayne the flexibility to, if it just happens to be that hair over due to timing, to get it out to exceed his maximum.
Right.
To get it out and get it done. We are looking for everything to be tuned up end of fiscal year, pumps, filtration, enclosure. It's all coming together at the last minute, but we're gonna get it.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? So I'll call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we do have a museum board appointment, page 85, but it is scheduled to be discussed in camera. So we will be coming back to that appointment after our in-camera meeting. Our bylaws, first one is the Emergency Management Program. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a bylaw in regards to municipality issued cell phones. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a bylaw in regards to the revision of bylaw 1051/2017 in regards to employment for senior staff management and non-union personnel. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We received a letter in regards to the building code, which is on the letters on page 94. In regards to calling the Ontario government to amend the building code as outlined in their resolution. it would have been nice to have our planner here just to see, but if we should be interested in going that way. No? Okay. Royal Ontario Road Safety Program, and we've received a letter with all the same question or a resolution. I'm not quite sure either if this is something that we want to implement the rural road safety program. No. No. Okay, the redistribution of the PLT tax and GST to municipalities. Are you interested in that? Yes, so we have that brought back to us, please. Okay. Yes. The OPP detachment billing increases. At this point, it does not affect us really. The ambulance shortages and healthcare system issues. And is that something that we should be looking at? It's on page 132. 132. To address the funding shortfalls and structural challenges in delivery of EMS services in northern communities. We don't deliver the service, so I don't know that that's the city that delivers that service. But we do pay for the service. Okay, we will bring that back to us then at our next meeting. And then a resolution from the city of Hamilton opposing the proposed provincial incentive that seeks to restrict or limit the autonomy of municipalities in implementing road safety measures. Not sure if anybody's interested in that one. And number G, the email from Jolene Turek in regards to the Christmas party on December the 6th. And the Murillo Hall, we've always donated, they're given them the use for no cost. We have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I just reminds me I need to get the box of calendars in my car. And then we have some communications here from Local Democracy in Cities, nominations for the Order of Ontario, the TBPS, the Shift, and the Thunder Bay Notice of Public Open House Northwestern Ontario CEA. New business. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. Just wondering if we could briefly just go back to page 83 with regard to the building envelope. Do we have any idea? It shows that we have 300,000 in provisions for the budget in 2024 for the reserve for funded through transfer from reserve. Where's the rest coming from? Do we know? Do we have any idea?
Would come from reserve. But that's, yes, but that's something we do when we do the year end of 2023.
Okay, because
2024.
report 2024.165 provided options to finance the project and said council would need to make a decision on the financing of the project. Financing after the project completion. Well, that's going to be into next year before this is done. So is it
Well-
something that needs to be on the 2025 budget?
Through the chair, I brought the report forward with the recommendation that council could choose to how they were gonna finance it. They
right.
came with the set price. We are gonna be expensed at end of December fiscal 2024, the whole value. So it'll fall under the 2024 provision. It wasn't a budget item to begin with. That's why it came as a separate report. Council did not make a decision how they're going to fund it. There's been various discussions about how we were going to do this. And I think it'll show up in the reserve transfers and everything else when we see that report coming forward. That's how
Right.
we're going to afford it.
Yes, that will come forward when we do the year end.
Okay, and one other question. Animal control, I think they changed things or the way that they're being looked after for picking up animals in the city and there's been some controversy. Just wondering, do we still have the existing agreement with the city that if there's a dog that we find at large, I think Public Works usually picks them up, not our bylaw enforcement, can we still take them to the city?
Simple answer is no. We do not have an agreement anymore and the facility is locked up. And we've been down this road probably 4 or 5 times this summer already.
Okay,
Alrighty. Any new business, Counselor Campoff, Counselor Calvert, Counselor Viss?
Yes, just a couple for, I guess, more clarification or maybe what we should be looking at. These sea cans, and I spoke to the mayor and CEO a little bit earlier. Do we get the assessment on those or not? And I think if you look at less than 800, probably none. Anyway, then someplace I see 5, 6 of them in a row already, so they get around that 800 square feet. And then there's some other buildings are larger. And if I understand it correct, if it doesn't have a footing, it's temporary. I don't think anywhere in our planning thing at all or bylaw, we should consider what is temporary. Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? And after that, either you put a foundation under it or you remove it or we assess it. I think we're missing the boat because as you drive through the municipality, unbelievable. They're popping up all over the place. And so it's really doesn't do well for a municipality. So I think we need to look at that and see what we come up with. The second one I have, everybody's got an email from the gentleman up in Mud Lake Road. How do we handle that? I don't answer those because I don't know, because if we all answer, we'll all have different answers. And so what, can you tell me how should that procedure be? Like, does the mayor answer that and just one person or where did we go?
Oh, in regards to the dog?
Yes.
That
Or any
thing-
kind like that at all, Mayor Lucia. My point is that I think if we get some clarification, I don't know when, should I or should I not, or who should?
Yeah, what I usually do is I thank them for bringing it to our attention and that it's been passed to the bylaw enforcement officer and the CAO.
Okay,
And
so in other
then I
words, then you
forward it
look
to them
after all
and then
those.
I don't do anything anymore. That's their
Okay.
job.
So in other words, you will.
Yes,
have
I do
all
that.
those that come to the council as an issue. That's good. I think we just need to be clear
That's
on
what I
that, so
just
we all
did.
know what's happening. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. That's all I have.
sorry, one thing, getting back to Councillor Viss's point with regard to the sea cans. I did ask the CAO and I'm not sure if it's going to be on an upcoming building permit, but I see that Ballard has the 2 big hoop garages back on the road A or proposal for like that's where they're storing all their equipment to the best of my knowledge anyways. Just wondering if those type of things, do they need a building permit? They're well beyond the size and are they temporary? Those things I don't know. So I'm just wondering if they had to get a building permit.
Through the chair, to the best of my abilities, those aren't the Ballard, they're part of the Canada Concrete plant. I don't believe they're the Ballard buildings.
Okay.
Well, since I've been back there, but I'll go check.
Okay.
I'll go check, because if you look from here, the 2 tents that I see are Canada Concrete.
And the concrete, okay. Okay, we could check into that.
But the question still arises, are they permanent? Or they need to be assessed and mandate.
Yeah.
No matter who it is.
Might be like, say, Shelter Logic or any of those things, they're not regulated, are they?
Yes, size by size they are.
Through the chair, I'll speak to that since
Yes.
I had to take down one of them because I didn't have a permit.
Oh, yeah.
They are regulated. They
At a
have to have
certain size.
Canadian- They have to have a Canadian stamp of engineer and they have wind, snow and rating and the whole shebang.
Okay.
Okay,
Through the chair, we currently have 3 on our radar that we're already looking at right now. I'll speak to planning and bylaw.
okay. So I have around 11:10 a.m. Resolution's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We will take a 5-minute break and then we'll go into in camera. Thank you. I'm just looking to see which one it was again. What the number was.
Page 10 of your agenda.
10, okay. All righty, so we have a resolution moved and seconded. No, we don't. We don't have a name in there yet. We have a resolution appointing a specific person to the museum board, so we will read an election. We will. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a resolution to reconvene the council meeting, the time being 11:28 a.m. All in favor? Opposed? It's been moved and seconded and approved. We have the resolution approving the minutes of the closed session meeting held on November the 12th. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed and carried. We now have the resolution that's been moved and second. We will have a vote on recommending the following appointment to the museum board effective January the 1st.
All right, so that we have two candidates here for council to consider for the vacancy in the museum board. There, the first candidate we have on page 86 is Mr. Patrick Gidley. And the next person we have on page 87 is the person named Arlene Green. So those are our choices, Patrick Gidley, Arlene Green. So I'm going to ask, start with Councillor Calvert, which person would you vote for?
Arlene Green.
All right. Councillor Viss, which person are you voting for? All right, Councillor Peacock, who are you voting for?
Patrick Gidley.
Councillor Kampoff, who are you voting for?
Arlene Green.
Lucy Kluster-Hust, who are you voting for?
Patrick Gidley.
Arlene Green is the person to appoint 3-2.
Certainly. Okay, so we have a resolution recommending that Mr. Patrick Gidley will be.
Sorry,
Oh,
Arlene
sorry,
Green.
Miss Arlene Green. I tried to sneak that in there. Miss Green, Arlene Green will be joining museum board effective January the 1st till November 14th of 2026. The resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we have a resolution confirming the meeting that was just held. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have a resolution moved and seconded that the council meeting be adjourned, the hour being 11:30 a.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.